Okay, Beseda. So we're up to Siman Nun Hey Halacha Yud, Sif Yud. This is a very interesting riddle. This is the famous riddle of the Shulchan Aruch. How can you have twins where the older twin is going to have his bar mitzvah a month after the younger twin? That's the classic old riddle of the Shulchan Aruch. So says the Mechalel, Im na'ar echad noilad b'chaf tesla ador rishon. If one boy is born on the 29th of Adar Rishon, Mishana Mubaris, when in the year he was born it was an Ibayah, it was a leap year, V'na'ar echad noilad ba'adar sheni be'echad boy, and then you have another boy who was born the next day, on the 1st of Adar Sheni, Ushnas Yud Gimel Eina Mubaris, and then 13 years later it was not Mu'uba, it wasn't a leap year. The older one, who was born a day earlier, has got to wait until the end of Adar in that 13th year. There's only one Adar in that year. And the one who was born later, he's going to have his bar mitzvah on the 1st of Adar in the 13th year. So the Mishnah Berurah explains, and that's the answer to the riddle. That's how it could work out. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Sif Kotan Mem Gimel, if, however, in the 13th year it was also an Ibiyah, and therefore there are two Adars, then there's no shaila. Then in that 13th year the older one will have it in the first month and the second one in the second month. Ad chaf tesla adar. The Tema, I might have thought she'choshev ha'adar harishon she'noted by b'makom shvat. What's the havmina? I might have thought that Adar Rishon in the year in which he was born is instead of Shvat. V'kim shegiah chaf tes b'Shvat b'shnas Yud Gimel yeh nase bar mitzvah. And therefore on the 29th of Shvat, maybe that's when the kids becomes bar mitzvah. Kamash b'lon d'lamrin and Cain. We don't say this, but rather we say that he has to wait until the single Adar of that month, and therefore it could be a quirk that his bar mitzvah will be a month after the kid who was born before, a month after him. His mitzvah will be, he'll have to wait a month, and the kid who was born after him will actually be at the beginning. Okay, that's one of the quirks. Now the Ramah says, someone who was born in Adar, and he becomes bar mitzvah in an Ibiyah, and in other words, so he's born in a regular Adar, and then 13 years later there's a leap year. He only becomes bar mitzvah in the second Adar, says the Mishnah Berurah. Even though the Mechalel said earlier in Siftes that we include the Ibiyah, the extra month in the year, I might have thought that's dafka if he's born in a different month. Could go in Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Say for example a kid is born in Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Ushnas Yud Gimel Mubaris, and the 13th year is Mu'uba. Ein nase bar mitzvah ad Rosh Chodesh Nisan. That's what the Mechalel said previously. But if he's actually born in Adar, Hava Amina, I might have thought the Nase bar mitzvah b'Rosh Chodesh Adar Rishon. Maybe Adar is Adar. What difference Rishon Sheni? Therefore, maybe in Adar Rishon he'll become bar mitzvah. Kamash Malon, the Adar Rishon only Adar. At the end of the day, Adar Rishon is not called Adar. Ela Chodesh Ibur Mikri. It's called the Chodesh Ibur. Shar Ein Korinus HaMegillah b'Adar Rishon, because at the end of the day, if you've got two Adars, you don't lay in Megillah. We celebrate Purim in the second Adar. We don't lay Megillah in the first one. We need 13 years complete. Someone is born on the first day of Rosh Chodesh Kislev. And in that year, the year in which he was born, there were 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. And 13 years later, that Cheshvan had 29 days, not 30 days. For Kislev, and therefore that year there's only going to be 1 day of Rosh Chodesh. Still, we say that he's got to wait till Rosh Chodesh Kislev, and it's not the last day of Cheshvan. Not the last day of Kislev, I mean. Sorry, I was right, of Cheshvan. Someone who's born on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, if he was born in the year where there was only 1 day of Rosh Chodesh, other way around. So he's born in a year where there was 1 day Rosh Chodesh, and 13 years later it was 2 days. Then he would become bar mitzvah on Rosh Chodesh. Okay, take a look at 56. Now this is a classic case, a classic question. How does it go with Yartzeit? So with Yartzeit and Ibiyar and 2 Adars, etc. Well, the Inyan Atanis says, note 56, much further on, we'll get there. Tovkuf Samaches, Sheyisane Ba'adar Sheni. The Mechaber says that if a person has to fast on the Yartzeit, which one does he keep? He keeps Adar Sheni. That he actually keeps the first Adar. Yes, if a parent dies in an Adar, and then next year there's 2 Adars, which one do you keep? So the Mechaber says the second Adar, the Ramah says you keep the first one. There are those who are machmir to do both. Because the whole machlokes is, what is a stam Adar, which is with the real Adar? Please stand up. And why doesn't the Ramah make a similar comment over here? Because the Ikka opinion is that a stam Adar is Adar Sheni. That's the stam Adar. Okay, there's lots to say on leap years and things like that, but not for now. Okay, next case. Very, very interesting and sadly irrelevant to halacha. Halacha Yud Aleph. Avarion she'ova al gezeres hatzibur. You have a person, Nebuch, he transgresses, he violates gezeres hatzibur. Ish of avera, or he does averas. Im lo niduhu nimna leminyan asara. Unless you've put him in chayrim, he is allowed to join a minyan. So you've got an avarion, he's doing averas. Unless he's or someone who's going against gezeres hatzibur, against certain decrees of the tzibur, unless you put him in cherem, he's allowed to join in the minyan. Now, take a look at the Mishnah Berurah Yud Aleph. Oisha of avera. Kosva primagodim dafka avera she'ovel oven. Only averas that he did because he was full of taiva. He wanted to do it. He was full of desires. Avlahachis. If he did it out of rebellion against HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he was angry with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, afilu b'dava echad, even in one aspect, one matter, one mitzvah, one avera, or if he was a mumal avodas gilulim, he was a renegade to go off to serve avodah zarah, or he's a Mechalel Shabbos in public, then dinner ka'akam ve'inam mistarif, then he's got a din of a non-Jewish person and it doesn't mistarif. Now that's a big discussion. The question is, what about Nebuch, secular people today who break Shabbos? Can they or can they not join in a minyan? So this is a big discussion. Let's have a quick look in 58. In Mechalel Shabbos bizmanenu, regarding Chilul Shabbos nowadays, there's a famous chaznish. Kosav chaznish sheyesh lerubam din tinok shenishbu. The majority of them have a din of a tinok shenishba. And so too, the Shalish Shuv Zigros Moshe Feinshin also says, at the end of the day, they're in shul. They're coming now to daven. So Ramosha, the Chazon Ish, are both of the opinion that you can let them join in the minyan. However, there are other opinions. In the next paragraph, Me'idach, he brings the Shalit Shuvas of the Orach Tzion, says that you cannot join them in the minyan, and so too Rabbi Yashiv also would say that. And he then quotes an interesting svar of the Shevet HaLevi. The Shevet HaLevi says, Mechalel Shabbos, or Mishin Noson Nachar, is someone who is Mechalel Shabbos, or Nebuch marries out, Ein letzar for the minyan. You shouldn't let them join in the minyan. Or Bier, and he says, She'av shemaisa avoseiim libadem, even though they're following the ways of their parents and what they didn't know any better, Mikol mok mihem en yodeh mishabbos kodesh v'prat be'eretz Yisrael. Can they really turn around and say, hey, we've never heard of Shabbos? We didn't know it wasn't allowed to marry a non-Jewish woman? So this is a big discussion in the poskim. And, I remember one time the Dayan got very upset with me. The Dayan was very makel with this. He said you should be definitely start from the Minyan, certainly the United Synagogue Shuls. I once discussed it with him. They don't know the Chaim Hadova, they don't understand the... Anyway, you can see it's a discussed, it's a well-trodden area. But either way, the Chazon Ish or Moshe are makel to allow them to be start to the Minyan. Let's finish off the Mishnah Berurah. So the Mechaber said if you don't, unless they're in Chayrim, they can join the minyan. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Sif Kotan Mem Zayin, afilu avera shechayv ala misa, even if it's a very serious avera where there's a chiyuv misa there, v'hatam, and the reason is t'chsiv ba'achon chata Yisrael, afa pishechata Yisrael hu. Even though he sinned, he's still got the status of Yisrael, of v'kedushasei kohen, he still retains that kedusha. The kas hanikra karaim, those are the people, the group of people which are called karaim or Karaites. Einom mitzarfi lasara. They do not join into the minyan of 10. They deny some of the basic tenets. They deny Torah Sheba'al Peh. They cannot join in the minyan. Okay, Yud Beis. Menuda, someone who's been put in Chayrim, Ein mitzarfin, he can't join in the minyan. He can daven in the shul, but he can't be part of your minyan. Unless they explain that, and that was the terms of the chayrim, of that particular chayrim. Okay, Yud Gimel. There's no Mishnah Berurah on that. Sif Yud Gimel. Tzarich sheyu kol hasar b'makom echad u'shliach tzibur mohem. Now this is also a very relevant shaila. Do all the 10 people have to be in the same place? With COVID, this was very sharp. When you're davening in the streets, one guy's here, one guy's there. How does that work? So says the Mechaber, all 10 have got to be in the same place, and the Shliach Tzibur as well. Someone who's davening, who's standing on the threshold, and the threshold is outside, that means when you close the door, so then he'll be on the outside. So it depends where he's standing. Where is the threshold in terms of where you close the door? If you close the door and the guy is still on the outside, then the threshold is outside. He's outside. He's not inside. So let's see the Mishnah Berurah. Kol ha'asara, says the Mishnah Berurah in Sifkat and Memches. Afilu im einam royen elu es elu. Even if they can't see each other. For example, there's a pillar in the middle of the shul and one guy's on the other side of the pillar. I can't see him. Doesn't matter. It's one room, and therefore you join together. They're called in one house. Therefore it's okay. Aval. Sometimes you have in offices, you daven mincha, and there's a room here, a room there, and some people are in one room, some people in another room. Then you can't join. Even though there might be an entranceway which opens between them. And therefore the different room, it could be considered like two different houses. Even if there's no doorway between them. So long as they're considered in two separate reshuyos, and some people are machmir even if you can see them. I know there was one office somewhere on Brent Street, on Green Lane. I don't think it's there anymore, but they've made it into a block of flats. And there, they had a psak that the Baal Tefillah has got to stand in the doorway, which is mitzdaref the two rooms. There was like two offices. You couldn't get enough people in both rooms. And there, he would stand in the middle, and he's mitzdaref both people together. I think that's what they were told. Okay, Memtes. Echod. You got 9 people in a shul, in a house, and one guy sitting in the sukkah which is outside. Yesh yesh cholkin machlokas about that. Because if you got 9 in one place, ve'echod achar havilloin sheperson at snius, and you got another guy behind a mechitza, right? Yeah, this is all familiar, right? Mitzdarfin, that works. Now, the critical word is letznius. The mechitza there is not a halachic mechitza. It's the snius. He just wants a bit of privacy, right? V'davkim pirush letznius ba'alma. That's specifically if that mechitza is letznius. Aval i'ika tefillin or sifrei Torah. But if there is tefillin or sifrei Torah or pirushu sadin kehechi dav mechitza l'shamish mitosai, but they put up a mechitza for a halachic reason because, for example, you've got an older person staying in the room, and they use that room as a bathroom as well. There's a commode there or something like that. So then you need to put a mechitza up, right? Or the couple are living there, they want to be meshamish mitosai. You need to have mechitza for halachic reasons. Then having nami mechitza l'teref asor v'lo mitzarfu. In that situation, that's a halachic mechitza. It makes it into 2 separate rooms. So if you've got 9 in one and 1 in the other room, they're in 2 separate rooms. They can't see each other, and therefore they don't join for the minyan. So it all depends on what is the function of that mechitza. Is it letznius or is it halachic? Prima godim mitzadid the chol gavim mitzdarif. In all respects, you can be mitzdarif. Okay, sofa penimis. Rotzulema. So what was that last little bit of the Mishnah of the Mechaber? Rotzulema. To be malkum segiris hadeles havikilachutz. In other words, that threshold will be considered as if you're outside. Even if the door is now open. There are those who argue on this. It's considered inside. If the mute stand inside and there's more outside, then you would be mitzdaref them. It's no different to a small chotzer which breaks out into a bigger chotzer that you can join them together. It's on the thickness of the wall. also the chalal hapesach levad b'makom hadeles kagoin. Heichesh hadeles kavua lachutz. When the door swings and it goes outside, b'makom hadeles v'lefnim, and the actual threshold is on the inside. Yesh oid chalal. There is another halal within the thickness of the opening. Then that would be kilifnim. After the primagod mashma the daites Rabbeinu Yeruchim soive gam bezed lavik lechutz, that even in this respect is considered lachutz. Al kol ponim haloi belav hochi harbe cholkan Rabbeinu Yeruchim v'chanal b'siv koten b'ayim behalacha. Okay, let's just quickly do your dalet because. We're going to get hits next week with Sukkot, so I don't want to fall behind. Very quickly, Yudalit. Misha oimed acher beis hakneses. Someone is standing behind the shul, ubenehem chaloin, and there is a window. Afilu goyve kamakoimes, even if it's very, very tall. Afilu in a roch of arba, even if it's not 4 wide, umare lohem ponov misham, and there is a window lohem ponov misham. Mitzdarif imohem lasora. He can still join to the minyan. So he's standing outside the shul. There's a window there, like here a bit, yeah, and then he can be mitzdarif. However, gagin va'aliyos, if there is a roof or some upper stories, einon bichlal bais, that is not considered part of the house. V'ha'imid aleihem einim mitzdarif. So if there's a window and the guy's standing outside, he can join in. If there's a roof or upper story, then he cannot join in. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Nun Beis, he's standing outside, and there might be a wall there, but there's a window. Then he can mitzdarif. Kiven demare lohem ponev doime lo mashim mavua b'simen kuf tzadi helin in zimun. Ve'miksosim roin elaseilu mitzdarifin. Since they can see each other, there's a window. Therefore, they're mitzdarif. If someone is standing in the Ezra's Noshim, and there is a window, and you can see each other, so you have someone standing over there in the Ezra's Noshim, you can see through, then you can be mitzaref. And certainly if there are 10 in the main place. If he can, he should just go into the shul and daven there. That is certainly preferable. Because there are some achronim who argue with the main din. For sovereign din has no connection with zimun. Gagin valios, you've got roofs or upper stories. Then we said you're not mitzaref. Why? Because they can't see each other. One guy's up on the roof, they're down in the shul. Why should they be mitzaref? It's an extra chiddush. Even though there are windows and perhaps you can see, but if it's not on the same level playing field as the shul, you're in an upper story, then even if it's standing there, and you mitzaref. So if it's a different entity in a roof or an attic, an upper story, then you would not be mitzaref. Okay, we'll leave it there.